right, Evan Ginzburg back with another edition of Evan Ginzburg's Legends TV. And this is a very special edition. We are going to honor the late, great Tiger Khan, who was not only a professional wrestler, but a dear, dear friend of all of us seated here today. We have my co-host, John Winnell, who's a poet and psychologist, and I have a feeling we're going to need both. And we have Abe Guzman, who wrestled as the Pharaoh and Peligro, seated next to Louis Bischoff, and seated next to Sir Christopher Michaels. So quite a distinguished panel, and let's jump right in. Why don't we let the wrestlers tell us a little about themselves and how they met and their relationship with Tiger Khan. Abe?
Well, I was already in the business about 5 years, and I remember training, and I remember when Tiger came in, Marlon came in with his father, and I didn't think too much about him at first, like anybody who starts out new, but he was very determined, very enthusiastic about a lot of stuff, and he stuck with it. And we trained, and we went on the road a lot, so it had some real good times with him.
And for those who have never experienced being on the road, you know, people bond. You know, you're talking about your dreams, your plans, your hopes, and give the viewers some idea of what that's like.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, you're on the road, you're traveling 100 miles to an arena, and during that time, you know, you talk about everything. You talk about the match, you talk about your family, you talk about the future, a little bit of everything. You know, you go to hotels, you go to the restaurants, and it's just it's a bonding experience, and it's your family away from home. You know, and it's an incredible experience.
Were there any any matches that stand out more than others, or road experiences?
I think every match that I had with him was just great. We always try to improve ourselves. Every time after the match, we say, oh, you know, we should have done this better. We could have done this better, maybe next time. But no, there's not a specific match. I think every match that I had with him was excellent. It was great.
And Louis, you're a magician. You appeared on the second edition of Legends TV as the amazing Louis, so you can check out the archives and see that. But tell us about your relationship with Tiger, and tell us a little about your wrestling career.
Well, also, other than a magician, I did start out with professional wrestling about 18 years ago at Johnny Rod's School of Wrestling, and that's where I met Marlon a couple of years after. He would come down, and Johnny took a liking to Marlon like everybody else, and he let him work the shows at the school. And I worked matches with Marlon, and we also became good friends. And we introduced each other to other people, and we had a pretty good friendship.
And since you mentioned that, you had a mutual friend in Mike the photographer who recently passed. Tell us a little about him.
Oh, Mike.
So supportive.
Yeah, Mike Mazzarato. He actually did a lot of the photography for a lot of the wrestlers. I introduced Mike to the wrestling business about 18 years ago, and him and Marlon, when I introduced them to, became really good friends. They were really tight, like I would say, like brothers. And like Marlon would go to his store every day, goofing around in the store, wrestling with Mike, even though he wasn't a wrestler. And they worked in a wrestling promotion, UCW, together years ago. And they traveled together too, like on the road, to these shows. But they became really good friends.
And I'd like to dedicate the show to Mike and also to Rudo, who was Marlon's dad, and Roland Alexander, who Tiger worked for, who passed this week. And also Fred Giabold from WBAI-FM, who was very supportive of Tiger, had him up in the station many times in our old WBAI-FM show. And, good people that are gone too soon, all of them. So
it's just great that you're doing this show today, because all these years, I think a lot of guys that really knew him, it was bottled up, or everything. Like, we never talked about it, really.
So, John, as a psychologist, how do you overcome, this is 7 years later, and a lot of people are still hurting. How do you overcome this?
Well, I think one thing that is images that you have. I was going to ask if any of those photographs are still available.
We're going to see about 20 of them today, later in the show.
And I think you just have to remember, the good times, and the positive things. And, like a scar will heal and it will, it remains, but the memory that you have, you hold on to that. It's very difficult to lose somebody, certainly, that you're close with at at an early age, anybody. So it takes time. It's not an easy process. But I think talking about it is very, helpful.
I spoke to Marlon, Tiger's mom, yesterday, and it hasn't healed. Just to be quite frank, it hasn't. So how does somebody that close get past it?
Well, she needs to focus on herself and remember him, and that he would want her to get on with her life and to try to find something that she's interested in and be involved with support groups. Because they do have support groups for parents that have lost children. And she just needs to focus on things that she enjoys and to get her mind off of that into some kind of a routine, whatever that may be, with friends, or continue her closeness with you and other people in the community that she knew.
Yeah, that's good advice. And Sir Christopher Michaels, you have had a distinguished career. You've wrestled some of the biggest names in the business. You've worked for major organizations. Tell the listeners, the viewers, a little about your career and your relationship with Marlon.
Well, I broke into wrestling back in 1989. Soon after, about within 6 months after breaking in, having the likes of Mick Foley coming around, giving me, beating the crap out of me, breaking me in, letting me know that this is a tough business. So you can't handle the hits, then you just best buy a ticket. And this, even like this whole thing with this hazing thing in football that's going on right now. The biggest thing that happens to anyone when you first break into wrestling is you get something called the boot. You go in there and you get the living shit beat out of you. You go in and everyone pounds you from pillar to post, and they just pretty much beat you within an inch of your life because they want to see just how serious you are. They want to make sure that you're not one of these fantasy football league kind of guys, that want to pay to play kind of guys. You want to get involved and get in there. And pretty much they find out that when you do come back. See, the old school way of doing it, you used to pay half of your tuition up front. So they figured if you got the crap beat out of you, you didn't come back, well, the guys at least made half of your money. And, that was pretty much it. You signed a waiver and whatnot. Soon after that, I was doing preliminary matches for the World Wrestling Federation. There I moved on. The ICW, which was International Championship Wrestling, was like the biggest cable promotion that was running on the East Coast at that time, where a lot of guys were getting their breaks, like Tommy Dreamer, Taz, Tom Brandy, who went on to become Salvatore Sincere, or even Tony Atlas, who went back as Saba Simba for his rebirth, but didn't work. So, and then also I was one of the original ECW members. I was one of the first triple threats in ECW, the Suicide Blondes. So during that time, I got to wrestle a lot of the big name guys of old: Sergeant Slaughter, Greg the Hammer, Jake the Snake, Ric Flair, The Undertaker, Natural Disasters, Rick Martel, Berserker. You can go back and think about all these other guys. I've been in there with a lot of these big name guys, and you have to have a certain amount of humility in this business. Because a lot of guys go out when they first break in, they go in there with these grandiose ideas that they're going to be the next Hulk Hogan, which there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to put things into perspective when you're first going inside the places. That when you first go in the ring, especially with these top name guys in front of 50,000 people, they're more afraid of you than you are of them, because they have their image and their reputation to take care of. And that's usually when you first go in, you see these guys known as jobbers, and that's used as the pejorative sense by the smart marks. But any one of those jock sniffers would trade places with us in a minute. As far as Tiger's concerned, I've met him several times in a lot of independent shows. But my most memorable time, I could say, with Marlon was at WBAI Studios when I was doing your program. And while we were in the green room, we had a long discussion about our wrestling ambitions, and he was telling me where he was going and what his plans were, and I was telling him my plans and what I was doing, and it was really nice that I got to see him other than his wrestling persona and get to know him as an individual person, his wants, his desires, his goals, and what his aspirations were in the business. And you also saw, like I mentioned, that level of humility. Because when you go inside that ring, you have to remember that the kayfabe is dead for all the smart fans that are out there, and everybody knows it. but it's a give and take, as Lewis was talking about before. It's one of those things, you go in there, you're not trying to kill each other. This isn't mixed martial arts. It's not the UFC, because you have to be with some of these guys. If you're on the road, you're in the ring with these guys 5 or 6 nights a week. And it's one of those things where there is a bond. Like they said, you have this family kind of thing with each other. You know, the guys get together, they rib each other while they're on the road. Like, one of the things they always told you was, during the time I was with the WWF, don't ever hang out with the nasty boys, because what they would do is they'd drop a halcyon in your drink and you wake up with one eyebrow shaved off. They would, you know, do ribs on you like that. So, you know, different things would happen on the road. And like I said, it's a family bond. It's a brotherhood. And it's not something that just anyone can get involved with. You have to pay your dues. And this is where you have to get at the bottom and work your way to the top, build a trust with these guys, and as time goes along, it's not an overnight thing.
But what if you do all the right things like Tiger did? He honed his craft, he worked a great territory like Calgary, and it doesn't happen. It doesn't pay off. How do you handle that? I'm asking the wrestlers and our psychologists. What if your dream doesn't quite happen?
Well, but that's not uncommon for most people. You know, it's disappointing. You either get up and you try to hone it even stronger or harder, or you come to some kind of a consensus and you rearrange things, or you go at it in a different way, change your image or get into something else, or, you know, we all have so many options in life, thankfully.
Most wrestlers, what they do, a lot of times, when they get discouraged, you know, I've been through the same thing, you stop. And you reevaluate yourself and say, is this, what am I going from here? Is it worth it to go on with this? Most wrestlers, about, I would say 95% of the time, I could be off a little bit, come back. Just for that one final shot of, can I do it? No matter how old you are, whatever, they still feel that they could still do one more match. And
Sure, I've seen that many times.
I mean,
Well, like Randy the Ram, right?
show business is so fickle. I mean, you can all of a sudden catch on somewhere, and who knows where the fire can be lit.
Since Chris mentioned Randy the Ram, yours truly was associate producer on The Wrestler, and the very first person, people don't know this, that Darren Aronofsky spoke to was Tiger Khan. The very first meeting we had with Darren was with Tiger, Johnny Valiant, Nikolai Volkov, and Nikolai's manager, Nikita Brezhnikov, and we all met and we bonded, and Tiger was going to be a big part of that movie, and he is thanked in the credits, so another part of what really is a tragedy. And we are going to go to a quick clip from Lanny the Genius Poffo, folks, paying tribute to Tiger.
I remember Tiger Khan, the handshake and the smile, the presence of sincerity, the absence of beguile. He made a wish to be a star, he gave it all he had. But now he's gone at 33, and all of us are sad. So many dreams get trampled down that road that never ends, but Marlon is beloved by his family and his friends. I remember Tiger Khan, the handshake and the smile, the presence of sincerity, the absence of beguile.
And that was beautiful, and we're grateful to Lanny, who's a legend in the business and who also appeared on Legends TV, if you check the archives, and always welcome on the show, of course. And before we continue, why don't we show another clip? Since Lanny mentioned Tiger's smile, you're going to see it firsthand here. This is a clip that was provided by Luis Velasquez, who runs Mega Hoot, which is a great social media network that has amazing functions, even surpassing Facebook. Check out megahoot.com, and many of the photos we're going to see later were provided not only by Louis Bischoff, but also by Luis Velasquez from megahoot.com. Check out this brief clip of Tiger Khan cutting a promo behind the scenes. You'll enjoy this.
I heard about Paris when you meet the squared circle.
Sound like Arnold, man. Really?
I am Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hear me now, believe me later. Alright. I gotta work on it.
Work on it now.
Oh, let's see.
I'll call you Rabbit Khan, man. You sound like a rabbit.
Tricks for kids. See, it has to come naturally too. I just can't, like, I can put something on there that'll be different every time. I want it to come like,
That's what you have to take. You're going to play that.
trying to see. Fucking now. Fucking die and shit. Bad thing. Come on, give me some pointers. Falcon Paris.
Yeah, that's
When we step into the ring,
yeah, slow. Give me an attitude.
Falcon Paris. When we meet in a squared circle, I'm going to teach you the meaning of pain. I will take your title, your fame, and your pride.
So as we were watching that, I glanced at our panel, and they had big smiles on their faces. How did it feel seeing Marlon again?
That's the Marlon I knew. That's who he was outside of the ring. He was great inside the ring, and this is what, this is the guy that would take his shirt off his back. He was humble. He was great. He was a great family man. He loved his parents. And I remember when I learned of his death, and it was devastating. I needed to confirm it with you. And then learning upon his death, I thought about the next person, his mother. I said, oh my God, his mother, what could she be going through? And I just thought of all about his friends and everything and all the dreams and ambitions that he spoke about. And it's just tragic. It is one tragic thing. Sometimes I say life really sucks sometimes.
Yeah, when you see a movie, they always put a positive spin, but it's very hard to put a positive spin on this.
It is.
And Louis, what was your reaction to seeing
Well,
him?
I felt good to see that because I remember when he was doing those promos back in the office over there. So it did bring back good memories because, as you could see there, he was like a practical joker behind the scenes. But when he stepped through that doorway to go to the ring, he was all business. He took it very serious. He, had a lot of pride in his work. And every time when he was done, he wanted to make sure he had the best match that he could possibly give the people, and he did. He worked very hard out there, a very hard worker, but behind the scenes, he was always make light of everything, just a joker behind the scenes. But it was good to see that.
And Chris, you've worked with the best of the best. How would you rate Tiger as a wrestler?
Well, like I said before about his humility and the way that he was, and was a gentle-spirited person, and being the light-hearted guy like Louis said, that's what you have to have when you're back there, because before you go to a match, and I've been doing this for about 23 plus years, and every time I hear the music, I'm getting ready to go out, I still get that nervous feeling. I still get that, cold sweat and wondering, oh boy, I hope I go out, I don't mess up, I hope I don't hurt somebody, I hope I don't hurt myself, and just still having that bit of nervousness inside you shows that you still care about what you're doing, and you don't have that complacency. And like he said, he was all business when he stepped into the ring. And that meant you go out there and you give the people what they paid for. And he was great at doing that. I watched one of his Calgary clips that you had posted on the internet. I was looking, I was saying, wow, look at how nice and fluid, gave the guys what they needed, and it was that give and take. And you see that he had that intensity of somebody that really had the full potential to become something.
Well, since you mentioned it, it's a perfect lead-in. Let's see a clip of Tiger wrestling from the legendary Calgary Stampede promotion, The Art of Tiger Khan, right here, folks. Enjoy.
The bell has sounded, and wrestling fans, this should be a classic confrontation between Tiger Khan and one half of the International Tag Team Champions, Greg the Pistol Pollock.
Well, let me tell you something. The Mahatma is just back from India there. They had a big international tournament. They had men from all over, from Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and North America. And the Mahatma won. He beat everybody. He's on a roll here. And if he gets a chance to win this match tonight, next week, he's going to wind up going up against my man, Richard Pound, for the championship belt.
I thought his partner, Dirty Dick, oh, see the rotation on that power slam by Pollock. Wait a minute. Just a few minutes ago, Reigns dropped the gauntlet and challenged Pound for the title. So what, you're trying to put dissension now between Khan and Reigns like everybody else?
Sure, why not?
Khan coming back from that Asian tournament, as Bad News alluded to. I understand, Bad News, he also spent a few days up in the Himalayas with his spiritual advisor, Mama Lukabubu.
Well, let me tell you something. He went up there for Mama Lukabubu because the Mahatma does everything non-violently. Look at this. He's beating up on Stu Hart's grandkid non-violently.
And it's all Tiger Khan now, looking recharged after a few weeks hiatus here in WOW again, and involved in a international wrestling tournament in Asia. Fared very well. Received
very well. The man won the
spiritual advisory of Mama Lukabubu.
That's it.
And now he fires Pollock into the corner.
The man won the thing, and then he went up there in the Himalayas, and he got his head together, and now he's going to take care of Stu Hart's grandkid here, Pistol Pollock.
T-bone suplex by Khan, and goes for the cover. Garners a 2, now blatantly choking Pistol Pollock in front of referee Dick Dixon.
Choking him non-violently, I may say. I love the way this man wrestles. He's able to beat you non-violently and make you wish that you never got out of bed this morning.
Tiger Khan, a former PCW heavyweight champion in Pennsylvania, also ECWA competitor in the Northeast, and there's a rolling slam and a double stomp.
There goes his.
And a senton splash.
There goes his afternoon pizza.
And Pollock able to kick out. Pollock, of course, a former two-time Canadian amateur wrestling champion. Tiger Khan, well-schooled in the mat techniques. He's a high flyer. He's a very accomplished professional wrestler. Unfortunately, tends to want to break the rules, tends to want to take the easy way out, where if he would abide by the rules, he would be a champion.
Look at this here. Dirty Dick is looking out for his partner.
Choking Reigns over that middle rope was.
And of course, the referee here, Dirty Dick Nixon's nephew, or whoever he is. His Dick, that's
Dixon,
the
not Nixon.
That's Nixon's ex, that's one of his relatives here. Under the crook.
Now Khan backing Pollock up into the corner. Both these combatants have to be considered top threats for the British Commonwealth Heavyweight title, currently around the waist of Principal Pound. Oh, what a foot! Right to the muscle, Greg Pollock, and Pollock is out cold!
These are the 2 of the 3 top contenders. You got the Tiger here, the Mahatma. You got Stu Hart's grandkid here, Pistol Pollock, and you got Dirty Dick Reigns. These are the 3 top competitors who are after my man, Richard Pound, the principal's belt.
And Tiger Khan again putting the choke on Pollock. It's been all Tiger Khan in the early stages of this matchup. What should be a catch-as-catch-can clinic as he puts Pollock up on top. There's a slap to the chest. Going up to the second turnbuckle now, Bad News.
Boy, that'd take the hair off his chest if he had any hair on his
Oh, my! Mamma mia! Overhead belly-to-belly suplex executed by Tiger Khan.
Moro, do you have any idea how that feels on your spine? Do you have any idea? None whatsoever.
Thank goodness no.
Imagine Coconut Willie doing that to
Coconut Willie was only able to give me an airplane spin, and that's it. And I don't want to tell you what I did at Velvet McIntyre.
Please, that was 97.
There's a clubbing forearm to the back of Pollock by Tiger Khan. Now a boot to the small of the back. And Tiger Khan methodically taking apart one half of the International Tag Team Champions.
A good old-fashioned bejesus beating on him.
Pollock now valiantly trying to fight back. A couple of shots at the breadbasket. That's short-circuited by a rake of the eyes. Now he's sent for the ride by Khan. Comes off the ropes. Ducks the clothesline. Drop down by Khan. Here comes Pollock. Leapfrog by Khan. Kick to the midsection. Climbs the ladder. There it is. Backflip into an inverted DDT by Pollock. Desperation maneuver paying dividends. But you can see he also felt the brunt of that as he is nursing his proboscis.
I love it. That's all I got to say. He got what he deserved. He should have that championship belt because they lost it last week, and they still lucky to hold on to it because of that stupid Red Thunder.
A couple of weeks ago in Calgary.
They're going to have to get a straitjacket for your ex-fiancée over here. She's going crazy.
Give me a break. As Khan is no longer giving anybody a break here at Stampede Wrestling. He is all of, oh, wait a minute, doesn't land on the floor, able to hold on. He's up top of the apron. And now Pollock drop kicks him off the apron onto the area surrounding the ring.
That hurt. He landed right on the cement floor.
Tiger Khan on dizzy drive, desperately regaining. Somersault plancha, Mamma Mia! And Pollock is in fuego on Tiger Khan this week.
Yeah, that's right. He's definitely hot. He's on fire here.
Pulling out all the stops.
Let me tell you something. Like I said, the Mahatma's on a win streak, and he's gonna make a comeback. That's for sure.
Pistol
Look at that.
Pollock
What did I tell
shoulder
you?
wrapped in the corner as you're right, man. He's not able to
I
turn
know
the
I'm right.
tables.
When I say something, I'm always right. Right, Mrs. D? Right. What the heck?
Wait a minute, what's this? In the heat of battle, both combatants did not realize the referee's count had reached 10.
What the heck was that about?
We have a double countout, Bad News. Khan and Pollock fighting to a very exciting double countout, and they're not finished yet with Pollock as Reigns comes into the ring. The international incident from the Shark Tank. Wait a minute! Pollock there with a double DDT sends the Shark Tank scurrying out of the ring.
What was that?
Nothing settled in that matchup, Bad News. Both wrestlers were counted out in the heat of battle, and this is another feud far from being over. What an exciting,
Well, I tell you,
albeit truncated matchup.
well, let me tell you something. There's not too many matches that I would go pay see after 23 years, but I would pay to see these two get into it again.
Nothing settled in this one. Pollock and Khan fighting to a double countout this week in exciting fashion on Stampede Wrestling.
All right, the magic, the art of Tiger Khan, the late great Tiger Khan, who we're paying tribute to today. And I want to acknowledge one person before I go back to my distinguished panel. This is from Bobby Bold Eagle, who was Marlon's trainer. I want to thank you for the nice tribute to my student Marlon Kaukai, Tiger Khan. I read it and broke down crying. Marlon came to my school with his dad, and right away I liked him. His dad was a very nice fellow, and I liked both so much I trained him for free. I never accepted a cent from Marlon because he was very dedicated. Many times I hurt him and roughed him up to see if he had the toughness in him, but at the next session on Saturday, there was that famous smile waiting for me to rough him up some more. He was a fantastic pro wrestler, and I adored him like my own kid, Bobby Bold Eagle. And you guys all knew Bobby.
Sure.
What's your take on his role with Marlon and molding him?
He did a good job. He was on, because I used to train. I was a student of Bobby Bold Eagle, and we used to get the guys there and train them. And at that time, not too many wrestling schools was around, and Bobby used to wrestle in Japan a lot, so he used to bring that dojo style of training that a lot of people didn't realize back then. So Marlon didn't know. He was like, okay, it's like if he went to Japan training, and we were just roughing him up and doing all kinds of stuff, but he turned out great. And that Stampede moment, that was great experience. And let me tell you, Bad News, Brown, Allen, he was a genuine fan of him. There were times where he couldn't keep a straight face with that Mama Luca Boo Boo Day. He ran that by me one time, and he always used to ask the guys, if you laugh from it, I'm going to use it. So most of the time, he used to get a lot of feedback, and that was great about him.
And Bad News passed young also. And since we're on that subject, Abe and I were discussing, talking about the demons, addressing them. What do you say to a young wrestler who's living the quote-unquote wrestling lifestyle, steroids, alcohol, recreational drugs, which do in so many of these guys?
It has done a toll on people, and I remember that you wanted to fit into the wrestling business. You wanted to be this hulking guy. I'm glad the business changed a lot. Guys like CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, where you don't need steroids anymore. But at that time, people was taking steroids, using all kinds of drugs and what have you. And it's tough to tell people, listen, you really don't need that. Try to use your talent. But it was very hard. It was very hard. You can't be around them 24/7. It's like that whole cliche, you could bring an elephant to go drink water, but you can't make them drink. So it was just difficult. You can always try to inspire, listen, try not to do this. Let's go buy it a different way. So, but with Marlon, it was very difficult. I loved him like my own brother, but there were times when I used to say, listen, I don't want you to do this and do that. And when I learned of his death, I didn't know half the stuff he was doing, and it pained me to know that to me, I hate to say, but he did a great job of hiding certain things. Like, I knew he had a great time and everything, but we would go have a few beers and what have you, but then he would just act a little strange. I didn't thought much of it. I thought it was just a beer and what have you, but I just hope today that anybody can learn from this. It will be this.
Somebody's watching this now thinking we're speaking ill of the dead, and that is certainly not the case, because his mother told me that if one person learns from this, is scared off, from making the same mistakes, that maybe his death was not a waste. And what more can you say? Guys, what's your take?
Well, as a pro wrestler starting out, there's so much pressure because there's so many wrestlers. There's actually more out there today than it was years ago, back in the 90s, I think, starting out. It's so many students that are starting out, they have 100 students in a place. Like when I started, it was 30, maybe 25. And with that pressure, sometimes they resort to things to get bigger, because you try to compete with these guys who are maybe 300 pounds when you're only 200 pounds. How do you compete with a guy who's 300 pounds of muscle? You feel that you're not going to get the break. But my trainer, Johnny Rods, told me years ago, and all the other guys, you never know what they're looking for. So don't force yourself to do something, and the thing is, they might be looking for the small guy, or they might be looking for the big guy. But I think wrestlers have this misconception that they're always looking for the big guy, and then they resort to these other drugs and all that stuff, which is it's a one-way trip to a bad location.
And Chris, what's your take on it?
Well, as I said, back then, you had these enormous guys like the Warlord and the Road Warriors, Ultimate Warrior, and all these tremendous guys that you knew that they were using, and back then it was just the norm. It's even now you're hearing about the doping and bicycle riding now with Lance Armstrong and all these other things. You don't realize that the pressure of having to perform and do the things to keep the fans, because right now wrestling fans are nothing like what they were years ago. Years ago at the Garden, Bruno Sammartino would have a guy in a headlock for 10 minutes on the mat, and the people would go bananas. Right. Now, you put a guy in a reverse chinlock, and some jackass in the crowd is screaming boring.
Right.
So it's the fan base a lot of times is what is the impetus behind what the wrestlers go ahead and put themselves through these things, because the fans want bigger hits. They want to see more spots. And it's almost like you see these, you think the fans are sitting there with a joystick trying to control you inside the ring. Sure. Because they just, ever since that ECW style of wrestling, every match cannot be a luchador style match. It just can't be like that. And that, like I said, that kind of pressure will have these kids, like the backyard kids. They may not be taking steroids, but they're hitting each other with barbed wire wrapped baseball bats, putting themselves through tables and, emulating what they see on television. And it just shows how stupid the kids in America are in this culture. Because in Japan, they know how to live vicariously through the medium of entertainment, and yet they go back to their normal life afterwards. So it shows the breakdown in our culture with our kids.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to add one thing. You mentioned that to learn one lesson. I think just by the panel here today and the enthusiasm, this is a man who I didn't meet, but seemed very charming and gregarious and did live his dream. Unfortunately, it was cut short, but he brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, and that is not a wasted life.
No, absolutely, absolutely. He had a ton of friends and a ton of fans, and everybody loved him, and that's why 7 years later we're still feeling it, and that's why we're here 7 years later.
He was very honored to be working with Bruce Hart and all of them up in Canada, because that's like a privilege. There's not many guys that could actually go and work up there in the dungeon.
Bruce is a genius.
Oh,
they throw the word genius around, but he's a wrestling genius.
He loved being up there, Marlon. And, just being up there was like a privilege, because not many guys have the privilege to actually work in the dungeon over there. That's like a major thing, and he lived that.
Absolutely. And speaking of geniuses, I have a quote from Johnny Valiant, WWE Hall of Fame. We lost a good friend. In one of his last matches, he was managed by the Iron Sheik against the wrestler I was managing. I had the pleasure of knowing him when he broke in with Johnny Rods at Gleason's gym in Brooklyn. He was a damn good athlete. It didn't surprise me that he moved up in the ranks quickly. The last time I saw him in Jersey, I figured he was basically on his way. He was a good kid. With a personality such as his, I always gave him my 2 cents. I was astonished to hear of his death. I know that he didn't achieve what he wanted to, but at least he went everywhere and tried. Who's to say what goes on inside anybody? Tiger was a good man. Johnny Valiant, WWE Hall of Fame. And folks, I'm going to wrap up this segment with one last question. If Tiger were here, what would you say to him?
I love you, man. I miss you.
Louis?
I tell him I miss him, and if I had to wrestle him again, don't take my head off.
Yeah.
I never had the privilege and honor of being in the ring with him. And if he were here today, I would throw the gauntlet down and say, let's go in there and give it one good go. And, you know, you always have to live your wrestling match as if it's your last, because you don't know what can happen. Anything can happen. And look at what happened to Owen Hart right there during a live show. Anything can happen. So you have to treat every day in the ring as a privilege just to be able to get in front of the fans and just be proud of whatever level you achieve, because there's 1,000 other people that would definitely trade places with you in a heartbeat.
There you go. And folks, what we're going to do is take a brief time out, and when we come back, John Winnell is going to have a short poetry segment on loss, which is appropriate. For those of you who watch this show, we are an arts program generally, not a wrestling program, so that's quite fitting. And I'm going to end the show with a piece I wrote about Tiger, and we will be right back. For nearly a decade, Evan Ginzburg's Legends Radio has featured interviews with the greatest names in the arts and sports. Heard worldwide at legendsradio.net, the program has featured these great musical legends: Ray Manzarek of The Doors, Billy Corgan of Smashing Pumpkins, Judy Collins, Roberta Flack, and many more. Stars from movies, TV, and comedy have included Jenny McCarthy, Wayne Brady, 30 Rock's Judah Friedlander, Shelley Berman, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, David Allen Greer, and Paul Mooney. Stars of pro wrestling and MMA include Bruno Sammartino, Rowdy Roddy Piper, Superstar Billy Graham, and Frank Shamrock. Co-hosted by renowned journalist Dr. Mike Lano, Legends Radio is heard Wednesdays 7 p.m. to 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard. We are archived 24/7 with hundreds of hours of classic interviews. Legends Radio also features the best in indie music, showcasing talent deserving wider exposure.
I'm from Brooklyn, baby. Don't forget the gravy.
We are soldiers.
You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss Evan Ginzburg's Legends Radio.
Are you planning an event and want to include entertainment, but you're not sure where to turn? Act1Entertainment.net has provided over 1,500 events with quality, affordable live entertainment at private parties, corporate affairs, festivals, bike rallies, and more. Act 1 will fit into your budget. They're friendly, reliable, and do all the legwork for you. They take all major credit cards. Log on to Act1Entertainment.net for a free, no-obligation price quote, or call 631-758-3505 for a brochure. You'll be happy you did.
Hi, I'm Steve Ludwig. When I was 52 years old, I had quintuple open heart bypass surgery, and I wrote a book about it. It's called See You in CCU. Apart from having my rib cage sawed apart, I experienced temporary loss of memory, depression, and sleepless nights in unbearable pain. A lot of people might think there's nothing funny about that, but I think it all depends on how you look at it. See you in CCU.
For professional motorcycle transport and towing, think Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing. Proudly serving all of Long Island, we feature expert handling and 24/7 service. So send a limo for your toy with Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing.
Okay. So these are relatively new poems, and to keep with the theme of loss and being strong in the face of demise and craziness around us. And the first one's called The Breath of Time. An orange glow reflects in glass the horrors of yesterday pulled from the river. Stubby pieces of stone, bloody skin, the bitter taste of loneliness, swirling gravity, lobster clawed. I watched tugs pull ships for hours this morning. Smoke and steam curling over white waves, leagues of stories chained to the murky bottom. One day all this water will disappear, and then we'll walk its encrusted paths, quietly weeping over the things we've lost. This is called She Sheds Disappointments Across the Night Sky. Golden hair, brown eyes, hands like parchment, flow like wheat fields weaving patterns. She's lost in old sepia-toned photographs, places and faces long ago drifted like dust covering abandoned relics. As a butterfly, she longs for scented fields, unaware of lurking spiders that slowly aim to drink away tenderness. Captured in a tower, gazing at clouds, she weeps in a white dress, crimson-hued from the sun's reflection as it glistens off fractured glass. Constellations thread dust and clouds like a boat navigating silver streams. A bitter taste stains her tongue where sustenance offers no refuge. Poisoned by time, sand endlessly flows through a twirling hourglass as fingers gasp for air, slowly suffocating. A wildflower, drying in the crisp light of autumn, loses its once gorgeous petals to a shimmering breath of stars. And then this last one, about standing strong. It's called The Dark Maelstrom Beneath Evening's Overcoat. Shadows frighten darkened walls. I watch and listen, creaking, banging the gurgle of water, filtering through copper pipes. Time is a damaged man, twisted, sniffing the air. From the bus window, orange glow melts while trees blush and quietly shed multicolored leaves. Tomorrow is an eternity, as today will soon be. Cracks in windows allow frigid tongues taunting as firelight dances warm beneath a belly of stone. Oh yes, how disappointment warps even the hunchback whose greasy fingers scratch its sockets, praying for sunlight. Just hours before the blade of midnight cuts its teeth into the river, I listen to screaming dogs, protective as they snarl beside a red maple that sways gently in a cool breeze. Thank you. It's for Tiger and everybody else. Thank you, Evan.
Are you planning an event and want to include entertainment, but you're not sure where to turn? Act1Entertainment.net has provided over 1,500 events with quality, affordable live entertainment at private parties, corporate affairs, festivals, bike rallies, and more. Act One will fit into your budget. They're friendly, reliable, and do all the legwork for you. They take all major credit cards. Log on to Act1Entertainment.net for a free, no-obligation price quote, or call 631-758-3505 for a brochure. You'll be happy you did.
Like so many people, are your finances tight lately? Afraid to open your mail or even answer your phone? Well, take heart. You don't have to live like that. If you're 62 or older and own your own home, you can join the thousands of folks who have used safe and effective government-insured reverse mortgages. The government-insured reverse mortgages from Long Island's Senior Reverse Network allow you to stay in your home and turn equity into tax-free cash. Our government-insured reverse mortgages can eliminate mortgage payments, credit card balances, or just improve your lifestyle. Do yourself a favor and solve these problems now. Call the Senior Reverse Network, and our advisors will answer all of your questions about our reverse mortgage programs. We've helped scores of senior Long Island homeowners like you who now enjoy a worry-free retirement. Get the financial security and peace of mind you've dreamed about. Pick up the phone and call us at the Senior Reverse Network now to set up a free consultation.
Call 1-800-985-REVERSE. That's 1-800-985-7383.
All right, Evan Ginzburg back with Legends TV. And for those of you who want to learn more about Tiger Khan, we're starting a website, tigerkhan.net. That's Tiger, obviously, KHAN.net. And that's going to be coming up very shortly. And some of the videos you saw and some of the photos you're about to see in the next segment will be on the website, plus tons of wrestlers saying what he meant to them, and fans, etc. so on. Anything you want to know about Tiger Khan will be on this website. And these items I'm going to show you now, this is a book by Jeff Archer, who was a dear friend of Marlon's. And there's an entire chapter, an interview with Tiger Khan. It's called Theater in the Squared Circle. And as you could see, Tiger's in this book. And it's a quality book. Kowalski's in it, and yours truly, and Lanny Poffo. My newsletter, Wrestling Then and Now, had lots of Tiger Khan content over the years, interviews and photos. And you can check out the back issues, WrestlingThenandNow.com. And we did a documentary about 10 years ago. Dwayne Walker, a filmmaker out of California, that Tiger is featured in, and very powerful. And he talks about his friends, and he talks about Mike, the photographer. And it's a beautiful little film, and it will be downloadable in the very near future. Dwayne Walker out in California is handling that. So, you know, I'm easy enough to find, legendsradio.net, legendstv.net, madhousetv.com, and we could keep you posted on all of these. And before we wrap it up with our panel, we want to give them a quick chance to tell us all the exciting things they're doing. I know Chris Michaels has a major indie show coming up, a charity.
Yes, it's a benefit a lady that's in, in her early 30s. She has multiple sclerosis, and because of the way healthcare is in this country right now, she is not making much money. She's not able to pay her bills, and it's like a choice. Do I feed my children? Do I pay for my medical expenses? Do I put food on my table? You know, what do I do? So Superstars of Wrestling, also known as Genesis Championship Wrestling, is having an event in Parlin, New Jersey on December 20th. A benefit show for her. There's going to be a tremendous lineup of talent that's on there. You could look for information. You could check me out on Facebook, Original Chris Michaels. Look that up. All the information for the show is on there. There should be a general admission price of $20 for the show. It's for a great cause, and it would be really good just to see the wrestlers coming out. Some may even be donating their time just for this cause. And these are the kind of things that in the wrestling community, like I said, it's a brotherhood, it's a tight-knit group of guys, and when you get together to do something good, a lot of times, you know, you tend to forget. You go out, you get, you know, the promoters screw you all the time. You don't get the payday you thought you were going to get. But this is something different. Yeah. This is doing something to pay forward for somebody else, and it does your heart good when you're doing something for someone else and you forget about the me factor. Sometimes it's better to look to help another person in need.
Absolutely. And Jay Lover just did a beautiful show for a sick
Cole
child.
Rapini cause, yes.
And you were on that.
Show,
You made
yes.
a in-ring comeback of sorts. Yeah,
sure,
that was great.
I've been out of the business for, just like Lewis said, a lot of times when you don't get those goals that you reach, you say, you know, you're going to reevaluate your life and say, you know, well, you know, at the time I had children to take care of, I had bills to pay, I had things to do, and the glamour of the road and wrestling and stuff had to take a back seat because at some point, you know, the gorgeous George days are going to pass, like this one old store manager that I used to work for said to me. He goes, and, you know, you got to think of the future. You just can't think of what's happening right now. You could live in the now moment, but just like a lot of pro athletes, you know, later on in life, you know, what do some people become? Like Bill Bradley, the basketball player, got into politics. You know, a lot of these other athletes, you know, you have to do something after the glory days are gone.
After the glory. And after the glory, Lewis is a magician. Tell us quickly about that.
Oh, well, I do magic shows for private parties, weddings, all kinds of events, close-up magic, stage magic. You could catch me at Coney Island. I do shows there, Magic at Coney. We have stage shows there, and basically, I'm pretty much, I travel anywhere, just wherever there's magic needed, I do that. And I also still wrestle. I made a comeback last year. That was my trying to get back into the business, but because I wear a disguise, I can't really say where I'm going to be next.
Okay, okay. And we have Abe. Any final words?
I am a happily retired wrestler. Yes. I love living the civilian life and sending love your way. And thank you, Evan, for having me here.
My pleasure. And we go back a long way. Yes, Abe's a buddy of mine. And John Winnell, you have a chapbook.
Yeah, I'll hold up the Poems for Everyday People and Poems for Everyday People wherever. And it can be, I can be contacted through johnwinnell@yahoo.com.
And you have a Facebook page.
And a Facebook page if anybody's interested.
WINELL.
Correct. And JON, no H. Right. John without the H.
That's the cool way to spell John. There you go. There you go. And folks, I'm going to be right back after a very brief timeout and read a heartfelt piece that I wrote about Tiger. After he died, which was the worst day of my life, I basically sequestered myself in the Hamptons in a friend's house and wrote this over several days. And it was very painful, but also very cathartic. And I'm going to share that with you after this brief commercial timeout.
Welcome to Formula Auto Wash, where every day is a great day for a car wash. Open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Sundays 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Detailing packages for every budget, starting out at $29.99. 100% hand wash and detail center. Hot hair and microfiber brushes and mitts. Proudly using Ecolab Blue Coral soaps and waxes. Formula Auto Wash has served the community for over 30 years. Senior discounts all day, every day. Ladies' Day Wednesday, $3 off any wash. Early bird discount Monday through Thursday till 9:30 a.m. Check out our website, formulaautowash.com.
For professional motorcycle transport and towing, think Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing. Proudly serving all of Long Island, we feature expert handling and 24/7 service. So send a limo for your toy with Kickstart Fabrications Motorcycle Towing.
All right, this is called Goodbye, My Friend. This may be the hardest thing I've ever had to write. On Tuesday, June 27th, I checked my messages and heard the words I'll never forget. Evan, this is Lou, Falcon. I'm sorry, but I don't know any other way to say this, so I'll just go ahead and say it. Marlon's dead. They found his body in California. Call me. Feeling like I had been punched in the face, I wanted to dismiss it as just an internet rumor. Hey, hadn't Scott Steiner died, and Paul Orndorff and Billy Graham before him? Hell, even Paul McCartney was dead for a while back when I was a kid. And wasn't there at least one other wrestler using the moniker Tiger Khan? I wasn't going to allow this to be reality. I just wasn't. Not my friend Tiger. Not the guy I traveled with up and down those many New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania highways all those years as he pursued his dream. Not my buddy who I flew 3,000 miles with to a show in California. Not my little brother who I roamed the streets of Tijuana, Mexico with at 3 a.m. on one of the countless evenings we enjoyed together. Not the rising star I proudly watched wrestle Jerry Lawler and Little Guido and Sabu and oh so many others. So instead of dealing with a situation I just couldn't handle, I laid down on my bed and took a nap that felt like the sleep of the damned. When I got up, I felt more tired than before. The horror of that call now hit me. Was Marlon dead? Should I call Lou right now? I pondered for what felt like the longest time. No, I said to myself, dreading a confirmation. I called journalist Jeff Archer, who was also close to Tiger and who spoke with him regularly. At age 57, Jeff was a much older father figure to him. He helped guide Marlon through the tough times in his life, many of which involved his trying to make the transition from wrestling to the real world. For in the past few years, Tiger had grown disenchanted with a business that provided him with too many lies, too many bounced checks, and far too many disappointments. The WWE dark match tryout at the Meadowlands may have been the last straw. So close, but yet so far. Right there in the dressing room, in their ring, 16,000 fans. After that, his enthusiasm in the sport was almost cyclical. A few months of vowing to make it, juggling tours around the world, and meaningless indie shots, but with even longer gaps where he didn't want to be bothered. Even though we all knew he wasn't cut out to be a 9-to-5er, Tiger just moved to California in search of a job outside of wrestling. Residing a mere hour from Jeff, I thought that maybe he had heard something, while hoping against hope that he hadn't. Relaying the message to him, he told me the San Diego News had offered nothing on Tiger, but then he uttered the command I simply didn't want to hear. Of course you have to call the guy back. Call him now. But what if it were true? How could I handle this? Hadn't we shared each other's dreams on those long road trips? Wasn't I going to be a famous writer and Marlon was going to be a star in WWE? When I make it, Evan, I'm going to take you with me. You were always there for me. And I was. Whether it was publicity, small loans, or just keeping him company on a long ride to a show, I never said no to this friend with the brightest of smiles, a passion for life, and a personality that lit up a room. How could I? Bracing myself, I started to dial. I felt my heart race a little faster as my sinuses pounded away. I felt weary as I tried to summon up the strength to talk. Lou, it's Evan. Is it true? And it was. Dead. Marlon's mom had told him herself, the Trinidadian mom I had met so many times, the mother who sat at his local matches and supported a child she loved so much, the mom who had me over their house for Christmas and other parties, the mom who, like myself, was now devastated. Tiger, Marlon, dead. Suddenly, hearing my voice start to break, I tried not to cry. I'm sure the pure shock of it was the only thing that helped me keep my composure. A neighbor had found the body. He had gone to sleep and, like so many other wrestlers before him, simply didn't wake up. It was probably a heart attack. He was 33 years old. My blood pressure must have spiked because I suddenly felt lightheaded. Hell, I knew Marlon partied hard at times. I once traveled hours with him to a show he wrestled on. Driving me all the way back to New York, he informed me that he was leaving right then to Atlanta for a party. Pointing to some pills that would keep him awake, he assured me he'd be fine. But the last time I saw him some 2 months earlier in Manhattan, he wasn't fine. Looking fat and bloated, I felt alarmed as that just wasn't him. I asked Jeff to stay on top of him, but he had sounded happy recently when we had spoken. I'm ripped, Evan, back in shape. I feel good, he exclaimed in that rapid-fire, life-affirming tone of his. But they had found the body, I reminded myself. This magnificent athlete, my beloved friend, had somehow become the body. His sister called me the next day to discuss arrangements, trying to piece together how this could have happened. We both knew. Like so many of his peers, Tiger had dabbled on and off with steroids. I even had the talk with him. I cycle on and off, he explained, trying to alleviate my concern. He rationalized that he didn't take the kind of doses that killed so many of our wrestling heroes. Hanging up, she said, take care of yourself in a consoling manner. Hell, she was his sister. Shouldn't I be consoling her? And knowing he was living the wrestling lifestyle, shouldn't I have been firmer with him? Wasn't I 13 years older and a teacher by trade? Shouldn't I have been the role model? An odd combination, this tough street kid who loved techno and clubbing, and this old school guy who woke up for work while Marlon was still out from the night before. But on several occasions, he'd say, we're going out drinking. And he laughed that laugh of his. I'm going to get you drunk, Evan. And although I've never, ever been a drinker, how could I not party with my buddy when he hit town again? Inevitably, instead of pulling him away from the table, I'd match him drink for drink. A feeling of guilt suddenly overpowered me. But the whole thing still didn't seem real. I thought back to how many times we wouldn't see each other for months, and I'd look forward to hanging out with him. He'd give me a big hug and tell me how much he'd miss me. And he'd always say, I love you, man. And now a cremation was scheduled. Gone, truly, totally gone off the very face of this earth. Sitting on my beaten old couch with my face in my hands, my body suddenly felt out of control. Bent over, I started rocking back and forth, and the tears started to pour. Hearing sobs that sounded far away, I realized they were my own. All those dreams of his lost. It suddenly hit me that I had work to do. Knowing that wrestling was what he had been most passionate about, I didn't want his career to get short shrift. Rushing to the computer like a maniac, I began furiously writing a press release on his passing. I read it again and again, almost not wanting to send it out because this would somehow make it final. It is with the utmost sadness that I must announce that the body of my longtime friend Tiger Khan, Marlon Kaukai, was discovered in California recently. A former main eventer for the legendary Calgary Stampede promotion, this veteran was a world traveler, having appeared in Trinidad, England, Wales, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, the U.S., and a variety of other stops. With his classic foreign heel gimmick, he faced such legends as Jerry Lawler, King Kong Bundy, and Sabu. I am providing these career highlights and interviews I have of him for those who want to cover his tragic passing in greater detail. Anyone desiring to reprint the materials can do so with my permission and appreciation. I thank you in advance for honoring a good human being who devoted most of his life to professional wrestling. My condolences to his many friends, fans, and family. Sending it out to my huge media and email list, I hoped it would get him the press he deserved. Oddly, it felt like the old days with me trying to garner my friends some good ink. And it did. The floodgates opened, posted everywhere. The phone calls and emails didn't stop for days. Media from Canada called me for interviews about him. Yes, Tiger Khan was now finally over in a big way. How terribly sad. Tiger was not only a friend, but one of my heroes. He would fearlessly get in the ring with guys twice his size. And when a monster like Typhoon picked him up over his head and threw him over the top rope several feet through a table below, I just cringed. But Marlon would just shrug it off. Hell, he loved the rush. And flying into dangerous exotic lands to wrestle, he ultimately flew out having experiences few could ever share. One of Tiger's favorite stories was of going to a McDonald's on a Middle Eastern tour with a crew of wrestlers. The next night, they couldn't find the very same restaurant. You see, terrorists had blown the joint up right after they'd been in there. Yes, Tiger Khan lived on the edge. He probably packed more into his 33 years than most people ever do in double or even triple that time on Earth. But like so many wrestlers before him, and most likely after, he treated his body like a chemistry set. And in the end, it was his downfall. Tiger Khan dead at 33. To the day I die, I'll always love you like a brother, Marlon, and I'll never stop missing you. But damn it, I thought you were smarter than this. I thought you were smarter. Thank you.